And hello everyone, welcome to, well, our first guest. Guests hopefully sooner. Spencer isn't here right now, but we are live now with the Scottish Secular Society, which I'm very happy to be a member of. We do only have one representative, but it's always great to have you. Welcoming back, Gary, how are you doing?
Oh, hi to you, Cal. Hello from Scotland.
Yes, hello.
Temperatures is about sort of 20 degrees. It's quite cold.
Yeah.
But it's still sunny.
But like I say, everyone, keep the money pouring in. Just hit that donate button down below. And like I said, you can vote on the Idiots of the Year, and you can nominate some awful literature for Bod to Bits to read later. If you don't know Gary Bod to Bits, he's very well known for having a very proper, clear, almost Patrick Stewart-esque speaking voice. And so we want him to read the most horrendous fiction, like bad fan fiction with lots of spelling and grammatical errors, just for the sheer laugh of it. $10 will get you a nomination for Bod to Bits. But other than that, just donate if you feel the need to. And Gary, I spoke to you earlier. You do have a copy of your book that you will give away to someone, yes?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so describe the new book for us and like...
Well, I mean, there's two books. Sexual Fascism was my first book, which was examining sex and the sex in the Scottish media. And that was a sort of 10-year project.
Yeah.
And religion featured very heavily because each time that there was any subject of morality, they would always have to have a spokesman for the Catholic Church and a spokesman from the Church of Scotland, who would always have to have a say at the bottom, Wallace and Connolly. And that no longer happens. And fortunately, it's because I think the nation has grown up and that doesn't happen anymore. My second book, which is actually only been out a couple of weeks, and that's Religious Fascism, the repeal of Section 28, which is quite a horrendous story about the repeal of Section 28 in Scotland. And it goes on to explain what's happening across the world. It's basically similar laws are being introduced in Russia, Eastern Europe, and it's causing the situation where basically gay people are being murdered, killed, beaten up. It's a pretty horrific story, and of course in Africa as well. And this book is a kind of a warning about how dangerous religion can be. And I think in that sense, it's an important book. My first book had a foreword written by Peter Tatchell, who is a renowned human rights advocate. He is a secularist, and he wrote the foreword of my book. And I'm very pleased. I heard only a couple of days ago that I will be introducing him on stage at the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games here in Glasgow in a few weeks.
Oh, nice.
So I'm quite proud of that. I have a lot of time for Peter. He's done a lot of good work.
All right. Just for the audience, this is just for the donations. I want to get this. Like Gary is willing to donate a copy of his new book,
Sexual Fascism.
Sexual Fascism. So what we'll have to decide. He will sign it with whatever inscription you would like as well. Would you be okay with that, Gary?
Yeah, of course I will. Absolutely.
Okay, everyone. So if you are wanting a copy of this book, we'll say $25.
Whatever. I don't know what dollars are.
So there you go, $25. Gary will give you a signed copy of the book. So if first donation, $25, put in is it sexual fascism?
Yes.
Yeah, put in sexual fascism and the message you'd like Gary to put into it, and contact me, and I'll contact Gary to post it to you. So
it will be flown over from Scotland.
Yeah.
And you're very welcome to it. So an insight into what Scotland's like, and it's not all kilts and castles and shortcake biscuits.
Yeah, but there you go, everyone. If you've liked the sound of the book, a chance to own a signed copy of it is yours for $25. So, like I say, I'll be monitoring the donations, so hurry up. There's only one going, so incentive to donate there. All right, Sheila, I'll hand over to you. I say I've got to watch my voice after doing that intro section. I'm starting to lose it already. So.
Oh, we've got 24 hours to go.
Well, I'm in the background for most of it. That's one thing. But yeah.
Well, I suppose we're here to talk about the Scottish Secular Society. So let's kind of jump over there a little bit. What do you guys have in the works? What do you have coming up with that?
Oh, something very exciting in the works, Sheila. And it's lovely to speak to you. And I'm not seeing your picture, but I'm sure you'll come on later. But it's always good to speak to you, Sheila. I always look out for you. And I know you've been such a loyal fan to us, and it's much appreciated. And
I love what you guys are trying to do. That's great.
So it really exciting's happening, because we're having a little bit of a problem here with schools in the sense that creationism in some schools is being taught as fact, and it's complicating things. It's we need to petition the government that they need to make a statement to Scottish schools that creationism has no place in discussions outside of RME, which is religious moral education.
And yeah, that gives us a good opportunity. Please welcome our very honourable chairman, Spencer. How are you doing?
Oh,
hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Spencer.
He who must be obeyed is with us.
Yeah, I'm all right. I've got one eye on my cat on the left, and I've got one eye on the football.
All right.
It's getting closer and closer to my kind of lager.
Right. A fine balancing act going on. Welcome to the charity show, Spencer. It's great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here, guys.
All right. Okay, I've lost track of where we were there, Sheila. And Gary, you can pick that up, can't you? Or Sheila, someone.
What was that? What is? I heard football. Everybody in Scotland is mad on football.
Not me. Definitely not me. I'm a rugby man.
Guilty.
Yeah.
We were talking about creationism in schools.
Yeah,
And
how far?
with Scottish Secular Society.
Was I allowed to
go
be
ahead.
saying anything at all about this, Spencer? I don't know.
Gary, jump in, dear friend, jump in.
I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to say anything, because it's but I think we can, right? I can.
Kind of put on the spot with that one, Sheila. There is a little bit of there is a little bit of an issue with creationism in Scottish schools at the moment, and we're in the process, let's just say, of doing something about it formally. We have a process, as you know, where we can petition the government in Scotland, and that gets put up for further consideration by the Petitions Committee to discuss whether there's any validity in the argument that we're trying to put across. So I don't want to say too much, because it's not actually in the public realm at the moment, but it's just been launched into the public realm. So what we've identified there is multiple issues with what we call creeping creationism into Scottish schools, and we're on it. That's all I'll say. We're on it, and we're in the process of rallying support from like-minded people from the science community and from the humanist community and the skeptics, and everyone who agrees with us that creationism doesn't really have a place outside religious education, but unfortunately it is seeping into the science classes in some areas of Scotland, and the Scottish Secular Society intends to challenge that head on.
It would be great to see. I know we're having a lot of the same problems over here, and it doesn't seem like anybody's really pushing. I mean, yeah, we all complain about it, but over here at least it doesn't seem like anybody's really trying to push for anything to stop it. So I'm glad to see that someone at least is getting the ball rolling from somewhere.
Well, the problem we've got over here, Sheila, the problem we've got over here is fairly insidious how it's presented and how it accesses the people it targets in Scottish schools. I mean, we have two ways that it's approached. And we have obviously the problem with unelected religious representatives on our education board in Scotland, which is fairly unique. So, I think we've gone over this. We have 3 unelected religious representatives on most education authorities. And if you're unlucky enough to live in the islands of Scotland, you may have 4 or 5. Now, they have a day-to-day or weekly, monthly dialogue with the school. And they're allowed to present materials to each of these schools in a fashion that usually goes unchallenged. I mean, there's this massive grey area, this huge void of lack of guidance when it comes to who controls chaplaincy input on education material in schools, whether it be sex education or moral and ethical education. Everyone's a little bit lost with it. And as far as creationism is concerned, we frequently have contact from concerned parents across Scotland, asking for help and guidance, and they don't quite know where this fits and why something that's completely contrary to the science curriculum is allowed to be transmitted through chaplaincy or through with religious education into the minds of our most treasured people, which are our future, which are our children. And then we have in Glasgow we have the more technical aspect of intelligent design creationism rearing its head. But we're trying to sort of go them out a little bit into what they're going to say about our challenge on creationism, because it's the way that it lands in the hands of the children, and the way that teachers, when they're confronted by it. And I've spoken recently, in the last 2 weeks actually, I know several primary school teachers, and I've given them a call, and I've been to their door to speak to them about it, and they have no formal guidance, and they're terrified to challenge creationism. And the scary thing is, the creationism that we see about young Earth creationism, the Earth being 6,000 years old, which is it's really difficult to gather evidence on, because nobody wants to speak out against it for fear of their job, for fear of their livelihood, for fear of upsetting the chaplain, for fear of confusing the children. So yeah, it's very widespread. I believe personally it is incredibly widespread. I mean, the small sample of 7 primary school teachers that I've discussed this, 3 of them have said quite openly that creationism does get discussed. It gets discussed in assembly, it gets discussed in other areas of science, and this is sort of primary 6, primary 7. But there is one high school teacher, an English teacher, who has said mentioned it frequently to me, but doesn't want to come out with it and be identified, that the teacher that does chemistry in one of the high schools in Fife believes in young Earth creationism, which is an insane contradiction if you think about it. And
no doubt.
I mean, it baffles me. And but she says she frequently comes out with comments that challenges the own material she's using to educate the children with, and she claims it as her way of encouraging the children to think differently. That science doesn't have all the answers, that there may be answers lie elsewhere, or rather than actually explain to the children that science, it's not really seeking whether something is true or not, it's how or if or why does it happen. And the persistent endeavour to find the solution rather than be guided by one book. So yeah, I'm aware I'm rambling on a little bit here, but no, we have an issue with creationism in Scotland.
Well, I would just add to that last year, and you can read this article on our website, the Kirkton-Holm School, primary school scandal, a cult, and I think you probably know them in America, they're not so well known here, called the Church of Christ, actually infiltrated a primary school for 8 years before parents actually discovered that they were there, taking their children out, handing books by Ken Ham about, showing pictures of people riding dinosaurs as though this actually was what happened. Really anti-science books that were being given to children and challenging them on science. And of course, the homophobic views, all the things were actually being taken into the schools, and they were really left in charge of the children. And as I said, this went on for 8 years before anyone knew anything about it.
That's astounding. How does that go on for 8 years without a parent or anybody finding out?
Yeah, but if you let me come in here, the funny thing about the Church of Christ story was, I take it you know Tracy Harris from the Atheist Experience. You know, because remember we had her on, and she's a former Church of Christ herself, and she was actually, as an ex-mom, she was stunned to hear that they would do this, because she said that's not something that they would have ever done while she was a member. So she was actually quite shocked. I said in America they would not dare do that, and it was actually it was a huge shock for her to hear that they were up to these kind of things.
I don't know. We have the Good News Club over here, and it's the same. They actually are using a court case for precedents to actually get to go in and do this on school property. And, you know, there's been places where they've been offered even empty buildings across from schools, and they've been insistent upon staying in the school after you know, classes are over, just to keep this kind of stuff going. So and I don't know if that's Church of Christ that's handling that, or if that's a different group.
Yeah.
I don't really.
Yeah, I think the problem we've got is not so much whether or not they want to discuss creationism or the right to discuss it within the right context and environment. It's more about the fact that it's seeping out of the religious RME classrooms in Scotland, and it has no place anywhere else outside that. And unfortunately, and I think you make an interesting point, Sheila, to why some people would be surprised this happens in Scotland. And I think it comes down to it comes down to a whole load of dynamics. Sorry, my cat's eating the reed of my headphones. It comes down to the dynamics of the relationship between the chaplain, the teacher, and teacher-parent councils. And I think in Scotland, because there is no formal guideline, it allows that ambiguity to persist. It allows people to just stab in the dark as to what isn't allowed, and to what should or should not be challenged. And I don't believe anyone. I certainly don't know the process that school inspectors have for monitoring this activity, and I would hazard to guess that they don't. I would hazard to guess that teachers are terrified. I think there's a lot of fear within the teaching community as to how they approach it. And they themselves in 2010 wrote to the government to seek guidelines and guidance on what we do when creationism raises its head and out with the context it should be delivered. And it was a case of, well, we'll leave it to your discretion, was basically the bottom line. That was the response by the government. And this then tells us that the government actually themselves don't know how to address the issue. That they're terrified of how they're scared of offending the church or religious leaders or those relationships they have within the religious fraternity. And it's all over the place. And because it's all over the place, it means that those who do have an agenda to get the creationist literature in children's hands will certainly pursue it. And we hope that we'll garner enough support to make sure that we go forward, you know, it is addressed and the right guidance does end up being published and implemented within the education establishment of our country.
Yeah, because I know from my own where I grew up, I was explicitly taught creationism in school.
Yeah,
there was the teacher even said they didn't want to go over evolution because it was too controversial for some people, so they just went with creationism, which was well, you got to bear in mind where I grew up, and that was the least controversial thing to talk about in the class. But it was just like I say, I was so absorbed with that. That's just the community, and you respect it and that. And that's very much what I feel is in Scotland is people are just you know, it's not harming anyone, just leave her alone, don't upset the apple cart kind of thing.
I wondered why that sometimes you like to be photographed with the dinosaur on your shoulder.
How does that? Sorry, Garry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had a question for Gal.
Yeah.
Now, believing in creationism, how did that prepare you, for going to college when you got into real science and all of a sudden got slapped?
Well, the weird thing was I didn't actually pay much attention to biology in school because it's just a very traditional place I grew up, and the tradition is everyone gets into engineering. The men go into engineering and the women just do, you know, secretarial work. It's quite patriarchal up there. It is very, you know, it's just, you've been to Scotland yourself. Have you been to the islands at all?
Me? No.
You've never been to, yeah. Well, Gary can tell you it's another world compared to, like, Edinburgh or Glasgow even. It's just, you're on another planet. Like,
I'll agree with that.
Church for every 5 houses.
yeah. Listen, every village has a church, and like every village is only 100 people, but every Sunday, every church on the island is packed to the brims. There's cars.
Oh, I've been in small towns here in this country that are like that, where except it's equal number of churches to bars. There'll be like 40 churches in town, but they'll have the same number of bars. You'll see the same people in both places.
I say the biggest change for me from leaving the island was the Sabbath tradition. That took me a long time to get used to, that I could just do what I felt like on a Sunday. I could go to
here on a Sunday.
Yeah, I could go. No, just even that I could, as a student, I could go do my shopping. And this is going to. I know people, they always their mouths drop, but the fact I could do my laundry and hang it out on a Sunday, that is still a taboo up there. I mean, it's I don't want to reel against, but my mum, like my grandmother died a few years ago, and she stayed directly across the road from my parents. And my mum started letting that cottage out as a holiday let. And then one day there was some guests up from the borders or something, and they hung their washing out, and there was a lot of village gossip about my mum allowing them to do that. I mean, that's the kind of place you're in. And my mum doesn't hang her washing out because she just wants to keep a good name with the congregation. It's it's weird. Like I don't want to mock these people, because I can understand it when you're pressured into that in a very closed-in environment there. And I think the internet has been a huge plus point for the island, for especially the kids, because 2 years ago, Dawkins was up there speaking. Years ago, that would never have happened. But he was there, and it was packed out, and it was all young people there. It was all teenagers from the school, and that would never, ever, people just wouldn't have let that happen years ago. So, like I said, the internet has been a huge thing up there, and it's opening a lot of minds.
It's great. I do wonder, I was just going to quickly say, I do wonder when some people say, well, let's keep it within religious and moral education, but the danger is, I think that might confuse kids, because they hear it's right in the class like that, then they go to their science class and they're told that it's wrong.
Yeah. I've always had an issue with that, with religious and moral education being lumped together. I really have. I mean, I think it's something that the national curriculum really needs to take forward. Religion is always held firm as the moral voice, the conscious voice of morality in the country. And I've spoke to Gary about this in depth. When an incident happens, or we have a tragedy, a national tragedy of some kind, our leader will come on, Alex Salmond, or the UK at the moment, David Cameron. Then there will be some religious commentary. Someone dragged out Colin to come up and stick your collar on and tell everybody, how this is going to resonate within the wider community regarding their emotions, and that we're all with them at the time, we're all praying at the time. But there's a gap. There's a gap between religion from moving away, from decoupling that ownership of morals and ethics away from religion into the wider community, into the non-believers, the atheists, the skeptics, the secularists, that now make up the largest portion. And I think there needs to be some way that they can start to convey these kind of messages. And in a school environment as well, the very fact that it is labelled religious and immoral and ethical education in some cases, it makes the obvious inferment that without religion you can't have the other two. And it was a point I actually wanted to raise, and raised to some extent yesterday when I was on being interviewed for BBC Radio, was that it's about time that we disentangled morals and ethics from religion. It's about time that we tore this ownership of them away from religion. And I gave an example about my own life, about how I've raised my two daughters. And we are an atheist environment, is the best way to put it. I'm always challenging my girls who are 21 and 18 to think for themselves, to try and reason with the information that's at hand. And when I was asked by Richard Holloway off microphone, so do you think that's worked? And why do you think that's worked? I said, well, it's because I instilled a character ethic into the children, not a personality ethic, which I believe is false. an insincere, but a character ethic. And I bolted that on to the way that they've been raised in the wider environment, from school, from what goes on in the playgrounds, from the way that teachers will discipline them, from the way we discipline them in the home, from the things that they read, the things that they see, and how they react emotionally, and with what level of emotional maturity they react. And I tried to sort of articulate and describe as best I can to Richard that, the time has come that this growing body of non-believers, that their moral and ethical voice should be heard. And unfortunately, we still have this immediacy when it comes to religion that they own somehow, that they are the national conscious voice of morals and ethics for a nation, for an entire people, from a whole diverse array of multicultural, multinational people. And I think, I really would love to see religious education just being called religious education in schools, and perhaps some other part of the curriculum embracing, maybe it could be moral and sexual education. I would love to see them being coupled together and delivered in a school environment. And I think that would be that would lean obviously more towards secularism, which I think is the way that they have to go with this 56-60% of non-believers that now exist in Scotland. I think we've got to move it out of that.
It's interesting to note that our state broadcaster, the BBC, ploughs something like £10 million annually into a separate department called the Religious and Ethics Department. Like, when did those two ever climb in bed together?
Yeah.
I mean, what happened? And when they talk about religious and moral education, which some schools are now calling religious and moral and philosophical education, for goodness sake, scrap it. Let's just call it philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to take this chance just to remind you all why we are here, why everyone is here. We're raising money for the fantastic Engineers Without Borders charity.
Your volume's down, Cal.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Cal.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but someone's alarm is going off and they won't switch it off right now. So I've been having to kill my volume. You could probably hear it. But just to let everyone know why we're here, we're raising money for Engineers Without Borders. The donations do seem to have slowed down, so please get the money rolling in again. Please. Like I said, Garry is offering a copy of his book for $25, and it will be signed by him. And like I said, the money will go direct to Engineers Without Borders. And I don't know, is there anything we can get Spencer to do for people to donate? I'll think of it. In fact, I have an idea, Spencer.
Slow down. Is that because we're in Scotland?
Yeah. In fact, Spencer, this is an idea. I saw this. The last kind of big fundraiser was for Fight HIV, and there's a guy on there. He's also, you're into bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
Now, what he did. Now, I know.
How do you know that?
Yeah. Yes. And so look at Gary's rippling physique as well. No, but there's this guy called Das American Atheist. He's a bodybuilder as well. And what they did was, for donations, they could nominate him to do a certain exercise on camera. Would you be willing to do that?
I'll tell you what I'll do. Right? I will.
Show your muscles.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'll do naked chins in the gym. I'll do 10 reps of completely naked chin-ups on the chin bar. If you're willing, if we can get over $2,000 by the end of the day.
By the end, well, we're well on the way there. So there you go.
Right, and I'll upload it.
Yeah, and you'll also get pictures. So
yeah, and I'll even write on my back, trolling with logic.
Oh, well, come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, there you go, people. The gauntlet's been laid down.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I
just hope there's nobody in the gym when I go to film.
Right.
Yeah, well, because it's good. Why are you doing this? And you say, I'm doing it for the starving kids.
Yeah, I am. This is going to feed somebody, so get out of my way.
Yeah. So there you go. The gauntlet's down. We can get $2,000 by the end of the night, and I know this is the internet pick, so it didn't happen. You will get picks. So there we go. You can't say better than that. And you know, probably for all the oppositions of the Scottish sex saying how debauched and obsessed we are with all these things. Well, there you
Absolutely,
go.
Yeah. There's no gratification whatsoever for me. And by the way, it will be filmed from behind, not from the front. Okay.
So there you go. So get the money coming in. And like I said, well, just we're speaking about secular, and I want to point out that Engineers Without Borders is a completely non-religious charity, because that's an accusation I've heard lobbed at secular folk, about charity. All this means, because I was explaining this to some people back home this week, and they said, "Oh, the charity, it sounds just like missionaries." And I says, "Well, no, it's not. This is kind of real. All the donations go into the work, and there's no religion spoken of. It's just." And the engineers that work on this, they're from every conceivable believer, non-believer, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, whatever. They all get together, and that is what secularism is all about. It's not, as some people think, it's atheist and banning religion. It's getting everyone together.
Yeah.
And being able to be free with each other.
I'm glad you said that. I was completely thrown yesterday when, is everyone familiar with Richard Holloway and who he is?
Yeah.
Right, well, when we started to talk about secularism, he proposed to me, so the discussion was around thought for the day, and this is broadcast on BBC tomorrow morning, by the way, if anyone up at that time and wants to listen to it. And he proposed to me, so we imagine then, Spencer, we have a thought for the day, and you have a secular perspective on it. How do you approach it? How do you take that forward? And he also made the comment, so how do people who don't, he instantly said, after secular, so how do people who don't believe, what would they say on Thought for the Day? And I had to correct him, considering his vast knowledge, his experience, and who he is and what he's all about. I was astounded that he would even infer that the fact that that if you're secular, you're an atheist. And this is a gentleman that's written endless narrative on the subject, has discussed it endlessly.
It just might be worth mentioning to our international audience that Thought for the Day is a 2-minute piece of religious proselytizing that interrupts our morning news on the state broadcaster.
Yeah.
And it goes unchallenged. It's also something that is a 3-minute, 2 to 3 minute monologue, basically, of something to do with current affairs or something that particular person is interested in and wants to articulate in a reflective manner as to what is going on in the world, with the world, from their perspective. But it always ends up being about their particular faith perspective. And that's the problem with it, because it's faith-based only. Like, for instance, they had 5 of the 2,000 kids from 2014 were allowed to do a thought for the day over the last 5 days, but they were all hand-picked from particular religions. And I had this discussion with my eldest daughter, who's at Dundee University, and she'd listened into them and said, she always amazes me with her worldview. She considers herself a secular humanist. And when she talks about things that upset her on television, she articulates a fantastic response. But I stand back and I'm like, wow, I would never have thought about it like that. And she asked me, why can't people like me participate in something like Thought for the Day, considering it's on every single day and it interrupts the current programming and it only ever seems to be people from a faith background. Yet I have so much more I could say better and more with more passion than most of the people who come on Thought for the Day, who always seem to take it back to their own personal agenda. And the answer was, you're not religious. And she said, but that's discriminatory. And I said, I know. Yep. And she's like, well, so what can we do about it? I'm like, you write in and complain. And I said, well, because it's a perfect example. And I thankfully managed to get that over yesterday. And I really hope that gets broadcast tomorrow morning as well. Because I think it's important that, as Garry quite rightly points out, this budget and this time frame that is set aside for what is becoming a more narrow group of people, narrow representation of the UK, it needs to change. It needs to be broadly more encompassing of secularists, humanists, and because we all have something to say about world affairs. We all feel the same. I recently lost my nephew to tragic circumstances, and the outpouring of grief and the kind words and the collective spirit from everybody who was speaking to me was just incredible. It was unbelievable, and none of it was within any religious context. The kind words, the donations, the gifts, the acts of kindness, that was all done without saying, I do this because I'm a Catholic, I do this because I'm a Muslim. They do it because they're human and they could feel the pain that I was going through. And, and that's something that needs to be programs like Thought for a Day need to realise that you don't have to be religious to have those feelings and to be that kind of person.
Yeah.
Well said. Mm.
Yeah, because like you said, the thing is, like in America, the head of Americans United, their main secular, he's a reverend in an evangelical church, and he's the head of a group that's campaigning hard for church-state separation because he realises it protects his belief as well as everyone else's.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, sorry, I lost my point there. That's what I corrected Richard on, is how plural that Scottish secularism is. And I tried to start the programme by framing that and saying, look, secularism in Scotland is not the same as secularism in Turkey or secularism in India or Somalia. It's very different in Scotland. We have a version of secularism that is Scottish secularism. And he cut me off, yeah, but you're jumping the gun sort of thing, you know, here. And I said, well, no, you kind of really got to understand that we have a very pluralistic approach to secularism in Scotland. We have been accused of basically being on the irreligious or anti-CS, and we really have a hidden agenda of, you know, pushing back against religion. And Garry and I and my predecessors, Caroline and Mark Gordon, we've spoken in length about this online, that we would love to be more inclusive. We want more Christians. We want more Muslims. We're beginning to see that come in a little bit more now, which we welcome wholeheartedly. But we have to really say you can be secular and religious. And I think that's something that many religious people or religious commentators don't seem to be able to grasp, that you can be both. And maybe it would moderate the atheist tone. Maybe it would dilute the aggressive atheism that sometimes exists within secularism if we were to start, you know, sort of filtering through and coming on board with secularism. I would hope that would happen.
Yeah, you can listen to Spencer talking to the Richard Holloway, the former bishop of Edinburgh, and another religious guest on this 2-hour regional religious proselytizing program tomorrow between 7 and 9 on BBC Radio Scotland. But if you go onto the Scottish Secular Society, we'll actually have it on iPlayer. You can, you know, listen to it at any time, because I know you're still on the air with this, aren't you, tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
It'll probably be heavily edited as well. And again, this is live. This is another problem, because it is of a religious context and faith-based context. I was given very little airtime. The majority of the subject matter was discussed by David Goodman, and that's not no fault of his, because he was very kind, he was very polite, but Richard kept on taking the conversation and allowing a lot of time to remain with David, to the point that the producer, as soon as I walked out of the studio, came rushing up to me and said, "I am so sorry about that." And I'm sort of left scratching my head thinking, sorry for what? She said, we afforded him far too much time. She said he was allowed to. She said, I was shouting down the headphones to Richard to keep going back to Spencer. But unfortunately, Richard's 18 years old and he's deaf in one ear. So I kind of think that he wasn't picking the message up. But that just goes to show that there is a natural, inherent, we have to afford more time to the religious voice than we do the secular voice. Even within the broadcasting, not just subject matter of what we were trying to challenge or what we were trying to discuss, but I was even forewarned before the programme that this isn't a debate, this is a discussion, which basically was a case of them telling me you can only speak when you're spoken to, and we'll dictate in which context you can discuss the issues that you have.
You were lucky they spoke to you. Sunday With, that's the name of the programme, won't even speak to me. And I contacted the programme and said, look, I have a new book out here. It is the only book on a very important aspect of Scottish history. I was there at the time when Section 28, the battle, when £2 million were put in by religionists to stop the repeal of Section 28, which was the so-called promotion of homosexuality in schools, this law to treat people equally. And that battle that went on, I wrote about it, and she got back to me and said, no, we won't be doing it. She'll interview people who've written autobiographies, because they do autobiographies mostly, from all across the world, but she won't actually interview me who has written about an aspect of Scottish history, and I've lived in Scotland for 15 years. I'm sorry about the accent, and she won't entertain it. She came back to me and said the book is not autobiographical enough. Well, how more autobiographical can you get? I was there writing about it, and it happened to me.
Just to welcome Mark into the call. How are you doing, Mark? Can you hear us, Mark? Oh, the joys of the internet, this. Mark? Mark?
He'll be trying to fish out his... Oh, I was going to say he'll be trying to fish out his best picture.
You're muted, Mark, so...
You're on mute, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
We can see you, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Say, like, down at the bottom of the call, Mark, if you can see your microphone icon, click on that, because it looks like you're muted or you're not plugged in properly. Mark?
How are we all with sign language now?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I think he can hear us. Yeah.
You can hear. But anyway, I'll take this while Mark gets sorted out. Please keep on donating. It is crawling up slowly, but we'd like to see it move up a lot quicker than that. There we go. That's what we want. We want more of that tonight.
Oh, look at that Scottish note.
That foreign money. Yep. Get the because we're up to, what is it at the bottom of the screen? $1,225 so far. So a good effort, and keep it going. And
$750 more and some interesting videoing.
Yes.
The whole gym in Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, that was good.
And Gary, you're not allowed to watch.
Yes. Oh, we got you briefly, Mark.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Now.
There we go. So I'd like to take this chance to welcome Mark Gordon from Scottish Secular Society as well.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. And
Hi, Mark.
probably
Hi.
you're best known as being one of the main people behind the petition that we had last year. Or was it this year?
Yeah.
I'm losing track of time already, and I'm only 2 hours into this thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, greetings from Switzerland. I'm now in Switzerland.
All right.
I left here because we didn't get progress with this petition.
All right.
No, I'm kidding. We had success with the petition. We had great success with the petition.
All right.
Technically, we didn't win, but I think we achieved a great deal, raising awareness.
Yeah, because they say sometimes it's, you can't change things so embedded overnight. You've just got to keep chipping away at it.
What?
Oh, we've lost you again there.
Okay, Mark was talking about the petition to opt in to religious observance. Very quickly, in schools you have religious observance and you have religious and moral education, which is teaching you about education. And with religious observance, it's basically forced praying. And we thought we wouldn't have a hope in hell of simply banning religious observance. It wouldn't work. So Mark came forward as a parent who wanted to actually be the face of the petition to the Scottish government to say, well, hey, how about telling parents about who is taking their children for religious observance? How long will it be? How often? Where do they go? What church do they go? To actually inform parents so that they can actually opt in. There is at the moment an option to opt out, but most parents don't know about it. And often they're told not to do it because it would disadvantage their children. So with
I think very often that
there we go.
I think very often that religious observance is something that parents don't opt out of because it's free childcare. That's another reason why they don't opt out. It's there. They have their child looked after for half an hour, and why rock the boat when you can have free childcare?
Yeah, there is a big part of that. Because like I said, even though this was outside, like Sarah May, I'm pretty sure you're aware of her. She blogs for us, and she was opted out of the observance in her school in Ireland, and the principal was actually just going to have her and a friend just sit in the principal's car while the observance went on. And I would not be shocked to find out things like that going on in Scotland with some children who opt out. Because I think you've been getting a lot of stories of the things they're having children do when they opt out, haven't you?
We have children sitting in cars, sharpening pencils and cleaning.
Yeah.
Or being told not to go to the school at all if they're going to a service.
Yeah. And the government
Okay, just to let everyone know, we've had a big jump in donations there, $1,317 now. Yes, Spencer, it looks like it could be confirmed sooner rather than later for you. So
I meant $20,000.
You missed a zero on it. But anyway, keep the money coming in, and as I say, the offer will stay open all night. If you've enjoyed what Garry has to say and you want to read his book, there's a signed copy of it going, and it'll be used for $25. And there it is, displaying it. I say, with whatever inscription you'd like Garry to put on it, and he'll happily oblige.
With a foreword by Peter Tatchell.
Yes, there's that as well to go with it. So, okay, Sheila, I think if you have any questions right now, we're only 10 minutes to go in this section, so please keep the money coming in. And Sheila.
Sure, I just kind of wanted to, I guess, touch a little bit on what you were saying with if we could go into, like, what some of the stuff that they have kids doing. I know Garry said something about there was one principal that had kids just waiting in his car. How is it even legal for them to have something like that happen? I mean, how do you're putting a child in, I know over here it wouldn't be. It's, your kids aren't supposed to be allowed into, teacher or officials' cars for any reason. So that one seemed kind of weird. What other sort of stuff do they have going? I know, like, when I talked to Mark.
Sheila, sorry, are you talking about Mark's comment?
It was either Mark or Garry had said something about.
I think he said corridor, not car. Sorry, I think that.
Yeah. We have casing in the school, the corridor, waiting for
Mark, sound is.
Yeah.
Mark, you're breaking up. Unfortunately.
Am I breaking up?
You're okay now.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Yeah, what we have cases of is children sitting in corridors waiting for religious observance to finish. So the child has not been given a suitable, meaningful alternative to religious observance. They should be given something useful and meaningful to do, rather than just sitting, waiting.
Yeah.
Punished, getting blisters.
It's effectively a punishment. Yeah. Even if they're not doing anything, it's effectively a punishment. But we have in fact heard cases of children being given menial tasks.
Yeah.
Do you think that's not legal? That is supposed to be?
To answer Sheila's question, that's not legal.
Right. Well, do you think that that's what it is? It's like a form of punishment for the kids that get opted out rather than sitting through the...
I don't think it's intended. I don't think it's intended that way, but that's effectively what it is.
Right.
And this takes us back to what the legislation looks like. And this is why it urgently needs addressed, because there's too much discretionary policy as far as this whole subject matter is concerned. And there's no clear definitions, there's no clear boundaries. Whereas if Mark or I, for instance, I have a 4-year-old who's going into primary 1 in his first year of primary school in Scotland this year, and he is going to have to go through the exact same processes as everyone else with his exposure to the religious environment, with school assemblies and with some form of religious education. Now, when I asked my local primary school what's going to happen to my son because I want to opt him out, they said, oh, we haven't had a child opt out for a number of years. We wouldn't know what to do. So I said, well, it's in your school handbook. What alternative meaningful provision, I quote from the 1980 Education Act, Scotland, what are you going to provide for my son? They said, well, we wouldn't have the resource. I said, but no, you need something of an educational. You need to be learning. You don't need to be left and abandoned and feel disenfranchised. You need to give him something of meaning. This is the school assistant head said, we don't know. Couldn't you just, he doesn't have to listen, couldn't you just let him come into the class anyway? And I'm like, no, I'm exercising my right as a patient to opt my son out. You're encouraging me not to do that. And this is one of 1,001 problems. This is the problem. The government just put their hands over their ears, close their eyes. Teachers they're left in the dark. Kids are confused because they don't know what to believe. They're being force-fed all this nonsense in school. They get home, their parents say, "Oh, that's not true." The teachers and the kids are scratching their head in bewilderment at the parents saying, "Well, why have I been given a colouring in book that has pictures of the crucifixion, that has pictures of torture apparatus, that my teacher has told me I need to colour in, and it will be marked tomorrow, along with the rest of the class." It's incredible just how much they actually get away with, because there's no clear set boundaries and guidelines when it comes to religious observance in schools.
Can I give you an update? Sorry, Mark.
Oh, you're cutting up again,
Mark, you're breaking up. Can I give you just an update? We have gone to Parliament now, and there was a committee with 2 members who are affiliated to, openly affiliating to Christian groups, and they, of course, turned it down. And but they have recommended that the government do make opting out clearer. It's not the end. We're not finished yet. We've got another stage that we're going to take this.
Yeah.
Which neatly goes back to what we were discussing right at the beginning. And we've also opened a page.
It won't be finished until it's fixed.
Sexco. We've opened a page for children.
Yeah, as Mark quite rightly says, it won't be finished until it's fixed. It's a serious problem, and I just believe that people within the academic and educational environment just don't know how to deal with it. It's fairly black and white from a secular perspective. It's fairly obvious that there's some serious issues in it, and I think because of the fear factor. I mean, it really is, to quote what's going on at the Independence debate, it is Project Fear as far as some of the chaplains and the teachers are concerned, and parents. Parents don't want their children to feel excluded or different from other children in their class. Some of them may not want to give their faith away. And teachers are stuck in the middle and stay mute because it's their career, it's their job and their livelihood. And this is even worse and even more so amplified if the head happens to be of a particular religious denomination, such as the Church of Scotland or the Roman Catholic Church. If you're in a Roman Catholic Church, the likelihood the head is a Catholic is incredibly likely. So we have these constant barriers that are put up to people, to concerned parents like myself, like Mark, who want change. And when you have religion and religious people who actually sit on the very committee you're asking to change, who agree with the status quo, and one of the ladies that was on the Culture and Education Committee, who herself is a Christian, was the one who guided the rest of the committee towards the outcome. The rest of the committee stayed mute because they felt it was safe to sit on the fence. It was safe to say nothing. Whereas this one individual, she led the chorus. And you could feel it in the room, even by watching it on webcam. They were terrified to challenge her. They didn't want to challenge her. They didn't know how to challenge her. So therefore, the outcome for us at that point was negative. There was a caveat that we were going to get some positivity around. We were going to look at what provisions are made, or how it's worded, or how accessible is information. But the real root of what we were looking for was instantly glossed. It was bypassed by the one religion, the one faith-based human being in that room. And that, for me, was a microcosm of the bigger picture, of the big problem, that it starts from way up to way down. And it's the battle will have to continue, right?
Okay, I'm going to have to wrap it up. We are just about out of time. And like I say, a big thank you to Spencer, Garry and Mark for dropping by. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Sheila.
And just to remember...
it's always
yeah, just to remember there's some rewards if you've been paying attention to this hour. Gary's got a copy of his book. He'll autograph it for you with whatever you want for $25. There it is, and we'll send it on to you. And Spencer, yeah, he's going to be doing naked chin-ups in his local gym, and there will be pictures as well. So there you go. There's plenty of motivation to keep the money coming in. So we shall see.
Donate.
Yeah, yes. And just a quick reminder, if you've enjoyed Scottish Secular Society, the Vice Chair is on tomorrow morning, when we'll still be doing this with the Gin and Tonic show to speak about apostasy in Islam. So stay tuned for that. And thank you very much again.
Before you go, Cal, can you tell everyone about where everyone can find us on the web?
Yep. Well, just a quick look for Scottish Secular Society in your Google. I'll bring up the webpage, or if you go on a Facebook and just look up, is it Secular Scotland to find the group? Yeah. And the group is very active. It's one of the most active groups I'm in, and I'm in groups. Some groups I know up to tens of thousands, but Secular Scotland is one of the most active and diverse groups you'll come across.
A new one for kids, Sexco, SECSCO, for kids who want to protest about religion in their schools.
Yes. So there we go. Thank you very much to Secular Scotland. And coming up as well, we've got a great big dick coming on. It's Dick Coughlan himself. So a whole lot of dick is coming. Yes, a whole lot of dick is coming your way. So stay tuned, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Right, see you all later. Bye.
Yeah.
And the Scottish sex in the Scottish media, and that was a sort of 10-year project.
Yeah.
And religion featured very heavily, because each time that there was any subject of morality, they would always have to have a spokesman for the Catholic Church and a spokesman from the Church of Scotland, who'd always have to have the a say at the bottom, Wallace and Connolly. And that no longer happens, and fortunately it's because I think the nation has grown up and that doesn't happen anymore. My second book, which is actually only been out a couple of weeks, and that's Religious Fascism, the repeal of Section 28, which is quite a horrendous story about the repeal of Section 28 in Scotland. And it goes on to explain what's happening across the world. It's basically similar laws are being introduced in Russia, Eastern Europe, and it's causing the situation where basically gay people are being murdered, killed, beaten up. It's a pretty horrific story, and of course in Africa as well. And this book is a kind of a warning about how dangerous religion can be. And I think in that sense, it's an important book. My first book had a foreword written by Peter Tatchell, who is a renowned human rights advocate. He is a secularist, and he wrote the foreword of my book, and I'm very pleased. I heard only a couple of days ago that I will be introducing him on stage at the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games here in Glasgow in a few weeks.
Oh, nice.
So I'm quite proud of that. I have a lot of time for Peter. He's done a lot of good work.
All right. Just for the audience, this is just for the donations. I want to get this. Like Gary is willing to donate a copy of his new book,
Sexual Fascism.
Sexual Fascism. So what we'll have to decide. He will sign it with whatever inscription you would like as well. Would you be okay with that, Gary?
Yeah, of course I will. Absolutely.
Okay, everyone. So if you are wanting a copy of this book, we'll say $25.
Whatever. I don't know what dollars are.
So there you go, $25. Gary will give you a signed copy of the book. So if first donation $25, put in is it Sexual Fascism?
Yes.
yeah, put in sexual fascism and the message you'd like Garry to put into it, and contact me, and I'll contact Garry to post it to you. So
it will be flown over from Scotland.
Yeah.
And, you're very welcome to it.
So
an insight into what Scotland's like, and it's not all kilts and castles and shortcake biscuits.
Yeah, but there you go, everyone. If you've liked the sound of the book, a chance to own a signed copy of it is yours for $25. So, like I say, I'll be monitoring the donations, so hurry up. There's only one going, so incentive to donate there. All right, Sheila, I'll hand over to you. I say I've got to watch my voice after doing that intro section. I'm starting to lose it already. So.
Oh, we've got 24 hours to go.
Well, I'm in the background for most of it. That's one thing. But yeah.
Well, I suppose we're here to talk about the Scottish Secular Society. So let's kind of jump over there a little bit. What do you guys have in the works? What do you have coming up with that?
Oh, something very exciting in the works, Sheila. And it's lovely to speak to you. And I'm not seeing your picture, but I'm sure you'll come on later. But it's always good to speak to you, Sheila. I always look out for you. And I know you've been such a loyal fan to us, and it's much appreciated. And
I love what you guys are trying to do. That's great.
So it really exciting's happening, because we're having a little bit of a problem here with schools in the sense that creationism in some schools is being taught as fact, and it's complicating things. It's we need to petition the government that they need to make a statement to Scottish schools that creationism has no place in discussions outside of RME, which is religious moral education.
And yeah, that gives us a good opportunity. Please welcome our very honourable chairman, Spencer. How are you doing?
Oh,
hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Spencer.
He who must be obeyed is with us.
Yeah, I'm all right. I've got one eye on my cat on the left, and I've got one eye on the football.
All right.
It's getting closer and closer to my kind of lager.
Right. A fine balancing act going on. Welcome to the charity show, Spencer. It's great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here, guys.
All right. And hello, everyone. Welcome to, well, our first guest. Guests, hopefully sooner. Spencer isn't here right now, but we are live now with the Scottish Secular Society, which I'm very happy to be a member of. We do only have one representative, but it's always great to have you. Welcoming back, Garry. How are you doing?
Oh, hi to you, Cal. Hello from Scotland.
Yes, hello.
Temperatures is about sort of 20 degrees. It's quite cold.
Yeah.
But it's still sunny.
But like I say, everyone, keep the money pouring in. Just hit that donate button down below. And like I said, you can vote on the Idiots of the Year, and you can nominate some awful literature for Bod to Bits to read later. If you don't know Garry Bod to Bits, he's very well known for having a very proper, clear, almost Patrick Stewart-esque speaking voice. And so we want him to read the most horrendous fiction, like bad fan fiction with lots of spelling and grammatical errors, just for the sheer laugh of it. $10 will get you a nomination for Bod to Bits. But other than that, just donate if you feel the need to. And Garry, I spoke to you earlier. You do have a copy of your book that you will give away to someone, yes?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
Describe the new book for us. And like.
Well, I mean, there's two books. Sexual Fascism was my first book, which was examining sex